dog.
It's a doggo.
Cowboy Bebop is a cigarette commercial masquerading as an anime to bypass legal restrictions. Set within the fantastical future of 2071, where California has finally been destroyed, the solar system colonized by the Triads, and Greenpeace armed with Mac-10s. Here we follow a misfit crew of bounty hunters in their endless march to avoid starvation, in a world where corruption and the spiraling crime rate has made space Los Angeles an unfortunate reality. Within this libertarian utopia, where every child is gifted a Tech 9 on their 10th birthday, we have Jet, our resident bald ex-cop with a financially demanding bonsai family.
Get in here and sit at the dinner table!
Spike, a nicotine-addicted former gangster and certified simp. Ed, a current autistic child. And, at risk of awakening the Hugo boss amongst the Europeans, Faye, a femme fatale Romani. Which is a lie. She's actually a con artist with a gambling-based humiliation fetish. Oh, and I'm...
Leave the dog alone.
From the dregs of society worth a mere handful of woolongs, because somehow Australians were put in charge of the monetary system, to truly horrific monsters in human form.
Get your hand off my penis!
Anyone with a price on their head is fair game to our morally relative heroes. A game. The Intersolar System Police, an independent armed organization that somehow has actual lawful jurisdiction through various interplanetary nation states, is all too happy to enable, since they're far too busy taking kickbacks from syndicate drug lords or performing inhumane experiments on the poor to worry about a little thing like crime. Ah, I see the CIA managed to survive into the space era too. But putting aside the ABC agencies hovering just beyond the curtain of our everyday life with surely no malicious intent, we're actually just here for the money. So double check that bounty, grab your 6-shooter, and let's go cause some excessive property damage. Spoiler free, of course. Cowboy Bebop first aired last century, in 1998, as a 26-episode show, with a movie set between episodes 22 and 23 airing in 2001. Simply put, it was big. Particularly in the West, propelling local sunglasses enjoyer and first-time director Shinichiro Watanabe to fame and further projects, as well as becoming a gateway drug for many future anime enjoyers to disappoint their parents, and subsequently end their bloodlines. I myself came across it after I'd already lost my motivation to become a productive member of society. Thank you, Haruhi. Very cool. At that time, I was simply looking up generic top 10 anime lists to further pretend that I had friends. Hence, Spike Spiegel roundhouse kicked his way into my life as possibly the coolest man to ever tempt me into a nicotine addiction. Soon joined by Jet, Faye, Ed and I, the Bebop crew quickly became my dysfunctional, parasocial family. A family who endlessly squabble amongst themselves for minor gain, and call it a job well done when only a few buildings take relatively superficial damage from their 20mm jet-mounted nose guns.
Did it, Patrick! We saved the city!
All the while, possessing their own complex pasts, merits and flaws, the bounty hunting crew of the Bebop mesh together like a set of perfectly rusted gears, covering for each other's weaknesses, complementing strengths, and always finding new and ingenious ways to insult one another.
Lack of parents?
Oh, and it got a Netflix adaptation.
He's shit in your bucket, man!
We'll get to that. Much like Hollywood executives, most anime fans lose interest in things aged beyond 6. Their seasonal anime rotted brains unable to fully implement object permanence, and cannot bring themselves to watch something that isn't trending on Twitter. Yet truthfully, despite what many would give as their reasoning, anime has maintained a fundamentally high visual quality throughout its existence, owing to its limits being grounded in artistic imagination more so than technology. For its part, Cowboy Bebop is pure 90s aesthetics, with highly detailed backgrounds, animation which focuses down to the smallest of sequential actions, and a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's one of the best examples of its era, untainted by the subsequent age of bulging eye cancer waifus and modification, which mostly supplanted it throughout the 2000s. Style-wise, it's just the Old West again, now in space, with the occasional dash of Hong Kong urbanism and Poland thrown in for good measure. All nestled within the loving embrace of blocky aliens cassette tech. The world of Cowboy Bebop feels like a glorious collage of ideas and concepts of a future that coexist purely for the rule of cool, yet remain internally consistent. Furthermore, forget the generic gun mesh slop from lesser anime. Here we're all in on weapon realism. G36, my beloved. Naturally the perfect weapon for trench warfare on Titan. No AKs though. Sadly, budget Soviet hand-me-downs having apparently fallen out of favour. Now, anime tends to press up against the laws of physics, but sometimes it does go a bit far, and Bebop itself possesses a small amount of associated brain damage. Most notably, where Spike decides to treat the vacuum of space as a dip in the ocean.
Hello? I'm under the water. Can you please save me?
But ultimately, the action remains relatively grounded, with space travel being treated as an everyday occurrence. I mean, in this world, there are literal space truckers rocking sexy pinups, still somehow using CB radios.
Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.
Now Bebop was amazingly popular, and naturally got some spin-off manga, games, and collaboration projects, which range between a mildly interesting afternoon to a Bebop at home.
Good Lord, what is happening in there?
However, in our blind lust for more content, we took a step towards something far worse, and far more insidious.
It is happening again.
For another show was made. And quite possibly, also in the fires of Mount Doom. Now, I have prepared you, but to the horror of every fandom, outside of going mainstream of course, Bebop has a Netflix adaptation.
So it begins.
Disclaimer, I didn't watch all of it. After dragging myself through the first episode, I instead settled for a clip collection of just the cringe portions to save time and my rapidly degrading mental health. 7 hours and 3 attempts at self-inflicted amnesia later, I realized my mistake in the back of an ambulance. It is the epitome of how to not adapt an anime, and a solid comparison to the unexpectedly good live-action One Piece, which, on top of being harder to adapt, proved to me it was even possible. And that's it. That's all that's worth saying. Don't watch it. Now onto something a bit unexpected. Dub or sub? Well, brother, call me a young Greek boy in the scholar bathhouse of ancient Athens, because sub all the way. However, exceptions exist. Be it from the excellence of the dub cast, or passed down nostalgia from those who originally saw it on TV, the dub for Cowboy Bebop is considered equal or superior to the original Japanese. Typically, a heretical idea, an executable offense. But, having seen the dub and sub, I can say both have a place. However, while the English is extremely good in Bebop, some characters by the nature of the writing fit better in Japanese, and vice versa. But to argue any further is a rabbit hole as old as time. So just do what you feel is right. You honestly can't go wrong. Unless it's in French. Do you know what also feels right? Jazz fusion. It is the premier approach to music design, and I'll hear no argument. Mainly because Bebop's OST is so expansive and varied that if I wanted to properly discuss it, I'd need about 3 hours. And as demonstrated by my editing, I have the attention span of 3 goldfish on meth. The Seatbelts, the band responsible for Bebop's music, decided to trap lightning in a bottle and produce one of the most iconic soundtracks of all time. Faye lighting up some gangsters while she lights up a cigarette to the explosive rhythm of a saxophone player having the equivalent of a rap battle with a trumpet quartet is everything I needed in life. The staggering range and sheer off-the-wall experimentation perfectly matches the action and story. It's so exciting, audacious, and just infectiously fun that you'll get whiplash from your head snapping back when it slams into a wall called blues. Come now, you didn't think this was just a fun adventure, did you? Hey you! Are you worried that Bebop is too fantastical? That its portrayal of the future is both unreasonable and illogical? Well, my friend, worry not. Because here, Israel is still bombing Syria.
Syrian border reports claim Israeli jet fighters bombed a guerrilla base, killing it.
It's good to know that some anime respect tradition. From ruthless syndicate politics to environmental terrorists with a highly practical plan to return to Monk, Bebop weaves genres and tonal shifts with an impressive finesse. Its primarily episodic nature is packed with love letter references to real cities, histories, films, and the Unabomber. If you want harder edges from Bebop, you'll get it too. But you'll also get the episode where they just do Alien, get high on mushrooms, or experience something unsettling. Its episodic formula showcases its strongest point here, with silly adventures one day and gut punches the next. Yet the most powerful thing that Bebop has, and what makes those punches hit home, are its fantastically written characters. All of which, in their own way, deal with the central theme of Bebop, the inability to move on. Jed is stuck in time, holding to a life that has already slipped through his fingers. Faye is a woman desperately searching for a history she can't recall, and a place she can return to. And Spike, a man not running from his past, but drowning in it, sleepwalking through a world he has all but abandoned. Each of them broken, in similar yet different ways, perpetually running in place, filling their emptiness with money, cigarettes, gambling, insane risks, and, well, each other. Alternatively, Ed and Ein.
It should have been me!
And through all that, it somehow actually ends?
Is that legal?
I will make it legal.
Indeed, this is no Disney Star Wars live service or progressively sloppier slop driven by monopolistic suits with the creativity of a rock. Instead, we get a true, indisputable end. Now, I judge endings harshly. If my local dealer says to me,
"Hey man, you should watch Knife Fight City. It's kind of like an anime escape from New York until that last episode becomes an anime escape from LA."
I'm going to stab him and steal his phone to post several pre-written essays regarding the federal response to Waco.
Let's do this.
Silencing his online presence and preventing him from spreading any more harmful recommendations. With that in mind, believe me when I say, Bebop has the ideal series finale, achieving its highest point while tying everything together in a perfectly framed moment that I will never forget. But let's talk hard money. Is it worth watching? Yes, go ahead. Aside from the obvious, there are no caveats here. From your great-grandmother, whose knowledge of anime starts and ends at Steamboat Willie, to your sister constantly posting sexually charged AMV edits of My Hero Academia, Bebop has something for everyone. In many ways, Bebop shouldn't work. The clash of concepts and story elements in a vacuum feel unbalanced. From Ed's adventure with hallucinogenic mushrooms to its raw depiction of depression, but it holds the knife edge all the same. Initially, I couldn't grasp Bebop fully. It stewed in the back of my mind for weeks after the final episode, leaving me to consider rather than spoon-feed me the answers.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Which is all to say, you might see Bebop differently. To me, it's the story of happiness unrealized in the moment, of the fragile time between now and then. It's about people thoroughly burdened by bitterness, betrayal, and the numbness of loss. Where other anime pretend that heroes always win that struggle, that destructive revenge can be cast aside for new friends, old memories stepped over, and raging emotions once cooled, soon forgotten, Bebop is not so naive. As a bitter dream, memory is all they have, even as it drags them down, unwilling or blind to hands outstretched. Like us, the crew of the Bebop are people, struggling to break from stories already ended, trapped in waking dreams. But for those unable to look away, it's all they have left. Hey there, hope you enjoyed yourself. If not, I'm impressed you made it this far. Either way, thanks for sticking around. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. I know it took a bit longer than usual, but real life continues to confound me with its petty requirements. I've also opened up YouTube memberships for if you want to support the channel, but fear the greater internet. Speaking of, I'll be adding another short story of questionable quality to the Patreon, as well as some art I commissioned for past videos. If any of that interests you, or you just want to have your name plastered up here, links below. A big thank you to Mandalore, the voice of Stabbed Man 1. He makes great game reviews with less headache-inducing editing, so if you haven't already, please go check him out. The artist Kyle, if I'm saying that right, also allowed me use of his freerun art. Please go see his Twitter for the world's most degenerate games of Where's Wally, but with anime girls. Now to the comments on Tanya's military misadventures. It's not a war crime the first time. Tanya is indeed my favourite war criminal, adding new rules to the Geneva Convention one line at a time. Do we even know when Season 2 is coming? I honestly have no concrete answer. We're well past the point where we should have seen it, or at least heard something since the announcement. My personal theory is that the bigwig corpos in the production company got nervous because their anime about a war in Europe now coincides with an actual war in Europe. Stupid, I know, but if I know anything for sure, it's that board members of big production companies Fear being yelled at on Twitter. I hope the falling anime girl at the end didn't hurt herself. Also, edit at the end went far too hard. She is now in a coma. I will send her your best wishes. As for the ending edit, thank you. Hard is good. I've been listening to that song in particular obsessively since before I started YouTube, and I'm really happy I could put something together that did it justice. Now, finishing up, I've prepared the next topic hill to die on. Clannad, love story, or ISIS propaganda?